The United States defense budget totals approximately $842 billion. Of that amount, roughly $170 billion purchases new weapons, ships, aircraft, and military hardware. The remaining $672 billion sustains existing capability, compensates personnel, and covers operational overhead. The majority of defense spending does not procure new capability. It maintains what already exists. This distribution is not arbitrary. It reflects the structural composition of the defense budget, which operates as a series of legally constrained categories rather than a single discretionary allocation. Each category serves a different function, operates under different authorities, and converts into capability on different timelines. Understanding where the money goes requires examining how these categories divide the total and why those divisions persist regardless of budget increases. The defense budget request includes approximately $150 billion in personnel costs, $290 billion in operations and maintenance, $170 billion in procurement, and $130 billion in research and development. The remainder distributes across military construction, family housing, and revolving accounts. These categories do not shift easily. Personnel costs do not convert into ships. Operations budgets do not become fighter jets. The categories are structurally separated. Personnel costs include active duty military pay, reserve and National Guard compensation, civilian employee salaries within the Department of Defense, and healthcare costs for active duty personnel and their families. They also include retirement accrual, which sets aside funds today for pension obligations that will be paid decades into the future. The Defense Health Program alone costs approximately $56 billion annually. Military retirement accrual adds another $30 billion. These are legally obligated expenditures. They do not decrease when procurement increases. They do not pause during budget constraints. The United States military employs approximately 1.3 million active duty personnel, 800,000 Reserve and National Guard members, and 750,000 civilian employees. Each of these individuals receives compensation, benefits, healthcare, and housing support. Active duty service members receive base pay, housing allowances, subsistence allowances, special pay for hazardous duty or critical skills, and family separation allowances when deployed. Healthcare coverage extends to family members. Education benefits accrue during service and become payable after separation. These costs are not optional. They are the structural foundation of an all-volunteer force. Reducing personnel costs requires reducing force structure, which means fewer units, fewer ships, fewer squadrons, and fewer operational capabilities. The United States abandoned conscription in the early 1970s. The decision to maintain a professional volunteer military creates a fixed cost structure that does not flex downward without reducing the force itself. Operations and maintenance represents the largest single category in the defense budget. It funds everything required to keep existing capability operational. This includes fuel for ships and aircraft, spare parts for equipment, facility maintenance, depot-level repairs, contracted services, training exercises, and base operations. It also covers the cost of operations themselves, including deployments, exercises, and ongoing missions. A single aircraft carrier requires approximately $30 million in annual maintenance costs, separate from crew salaries. Nuclear refueling and complex overhaul for a carrier costs approximately $5 billion and takes 4 years. The Air Force spends approximately $12 billion annually on aircraft depot maintenance alone. The Army spends roughly $18 billion maintaining ground vehicles, weapons systems, and equipment. These are not costs incurred to build new capability. These are costs incurred to prevent existing capability from degrading into inoperability. The reason operations and maintenance costs are so high is straightforward. Military equipment operates in harsh environments under demanding conditions. Aircraft accumulate flight hours that stress airframes and engines. Ships endure saltwater corrosion and mechanical wear. Ground vehicles traverse extreme terrain, carrying heavy loads. All of this creates continuous maintenance requirements. Equipment that is not maintained fails. Capability that is not sustained atrophies. The operations and maintenance budget exists to prevent that atrophy. This creates a structural constraint. As the force acquires more advanced equipment, maintenance costs increase. A fifth-generation fighter costs more per flight hour to maintain than a fourth-generation fighter. A modern destroyer with integrated electric propulsion and advanced radar systems requires more specialized maintenance than older ships with conventional systems. Expanding capability does not reduce operations and maintenance costs. It increases them. Procurement and research and development are separate categories, and the distinction matters. Research and development funds the design, testing, and development of new systems before they enter production. This includes basic research, applied research, advanced technology development, demonstration and validation, and engineering and manufacturing development. It produces prototypes, conducts testing, and refines designs. It does not produce fielded capability. Procurement funds the actual purchase of equipment, weapons, vehicles, ships, and aircraft that have completed development and been approved for production. This is where new capability is acquired. The procurement budget of approximately $170 billion includes aircraft procurement, missile procurement, shipbuilding, weapons and tracked combat vehicles, ammunition, and other equipment. This is the portion of the budget that directly increases combat power. $170 billion sounds substantial, but it must cover acquisition across every service and every domain. Shipbuilding alone costs approximately $32 billion annually. Aircraft procurement costs approximately $60 billion. Ground systems cost approximately $12 billion. Ammunition costs approximately $14 billion. Missiles cost approximately $20 billion. The remainder distributes across communications equipment, vehicles, support equipment, and other systems. A single Virginia-class submarine costs approximately $3.5 billion and takes approximately 7 years to construct. The Navy aims to maintain a fleet of 66 attack submarines. At current construction rates, the Navy builds approximately 2 submarines per year. A Ford-class aircraft carrier costs approximately $13 billion and requires approximately 5 years to build. The Navy operates 11 aircraft carriers. Replacing the fleet on a one-for-one basis at current construction rates means each carrier serves for approximately 55 years. An F-35 fighter costs between $80 and $100 million, depending on variant. The Air Force plans to acquire approximately 1,700 F-35 aircraft over the life of the program. At current procurement rates of approximately 80 aircraft per year, full procurement will take more than 2 decades from program start. The Army's planned acquisition of approximately 1,700 M10 Booker light tanks will take more than a decade to complete at projected procurement rates. This reveals the structural lag inherent in defense spending. Money allocated in one fiscal year does not produce operational capability in that same year. Procurement funds obligated today purchase equipment that will be delivered 3 to 7 years from now. Ships ordered today will enter service a decade from now. This is not bureaucratic inefficiency. This is the physical reality of manufacturing complex systems. A ship cannot be built faster than the shipyard can weld steel and install systems. An aircraft cannot be produced faster than the supply chain can deliver components. This creates an asymmetry that is not widely understood. Increasing the defense budget does not immediately increase combat capability. The bottleneck is not money. The bottleneck is industrial capacity, workforce availability, and production timelines. Adding 10% to the procurement budget does not increase ship construction by 10% if shipyards are already operating at capacity. It does not accelerate aircraft production if the supply chain cannot deliver engines faster. Money is necessary, but not sufficient. The United States could allocate $200 billion to shipbuilding tomorrow. It would not produce more ships next year. Shipyards operate at maximum sustainable capacity. Expanding capacity requires building new facilities, training new workers, and establishing new supplier relationships. That process takes years. The same constraint applies to aircraft production, missile manufacturing, and ammunition production. Industrial capacity cannot be conjured instantly. This structural reality shapes what the defense budget can and cannot accomplish. It can sustain existing capability. It can slowly expand capability within the limits of industrial capacity. It cannot rapidly generate new capability in response to immediate threats. The military the United States will field 5 years from now is largely determined by decisions made 5 years ago. When defense budgets tighten, these structural constraints determine what compresses first. Personnel costs are both legally obligated and politically constrained. Reducing personnel requires force structure cuts, which face institutional and congressional resistance. Operations and maintenance cannot easily be reduced without degrading readiness. Equipment that is not maintained fails. Training that is deferred creates capability gaps that take years to recover. As a result, procurement and modernization absorb the majority of budget reductions. Programs are delayed, production rates slow, modernization timelines extend. This pattern slows the replacement of aging systems before it reduces force size. The consequence is a force that remains structurally intact but operates older equipment for longer periods. The $842 billion defense budget is not a single pool of money available for any purpose. It is a set of legally constrained appropriations, each serving a different function, each operating on a different timeline. Personnel costs are fixed by force structure and compensation policy. Operations and maintenance costs are fixed by the size and complexity of the force. Procurement is constrained by industrial capacity and production timelines. Research and development operates on multi-year cycles driven by engineering requirements, not budget availability. This does not mean the defense budget is well allocated or efficiently spent. It means that changing what the budget produces requires changing the structure of the force, the capacity of the industrial base, and the timelines of acquisition programs. Those changes are measured in years and decades, not fiscal quarters. The consequence of this structure is that sustained capability costs more than acquiring capability. The United States spends more on operations and maintenance than on procurement. It spends more keeping systems running than buying new systems. That ratio reflects the reality that military capability is not a one-time purchase. It is a continuous commitment to training, maintenance, logistics, and operational readiness. Without that commitment, hardware becomes inert metal. The defense budget does not convert directly into new capability. It sustains force structure, maintains readiness, and slowly modernizes within the constraints of industrial capacity and engineering timelines. The size of the budget matters less than the structure it supports and the capacity of the industrial base that produces equipment. Those structural elements determine what $842 billion becomes over time.